can you tell the difference between this and this? You plug this one into a PlayStation, you plug this one into a Nintendo Switch. Nice and simple, right? Now, can you tell me the difference between this and this and this and this and this and this and this? Well, in addition to the fact that I have an unhealthy number of these dongles, the thing is that they're just really confusing and it's difficult to know which one you're supposed to buy. So at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you which of these controllers you need to buy. Hint, hint, it's this one. And then I'm also going to tell you why Brooke probably needs to fire some people because it is way too confusing as to which one of these you're supposed to buy. All right, jokes aside, Brooke doesn't actually need to fire someone, but they do need to have a look at their product strategy and their marketing. Because if the average fighting gamer cannot figure out the difference between the Wingman FGC, the Wingman FGC2, the Wingman FGC VX, the Wingman P5, the Wingman P5S, don't forget about the other ones that are for like the Xbox, it's obviously a little bit confusing. Now, first things first, I want to point out that Brooke actually sent these to me. They probably didn't think I was going to be yelling at them and telling them to fire someone, but they did send me these products for the purposes of making this video. And the thing is, these are great products. I'm actually showing you two different things today. This is a P5 and a P5S, but it's really confusing because I'm not sure why this one exists. All you really need to know is that the P5 allows you to use pretty much any controller on your PS5 for pretty much any game, and the P5S does the exact same thing, but it also allows you to do this on your Nintendo Switch. Now, as you can see here on the desk, I've got a huge number of these converters, but we don't actually need these old ones that I've actually covered in previous videos. We're just going to be looking at these two today because they are the newest ones, the P5 and the P5S. Now, just to show you that you don't need the P5S if you're only playing on a PlayStation, I'll use this one first. I'll just plug this into my PlayStation 5, and I should be able to use this wireless, but this has got no battery in it, so I'm just going to plug it in with a cable. Then I'm going to plug the other end of this cable into the P5. And as you can see, I'm now playing Street Fighter 6 on my PlayStation 5, but with a Nintendo Switch Pro Controller. Now, if you're trying to figure out exactly which controller is going to work with this adapter, you just go on the Brooke website and there's a list of supported controllers that work. The truth is that a number of controllers that are not on that list also work. Like, I tried it on my GP 2040 firmware controllers and they all seem to work just fine. So in order to make it no more complicated than it actually needs to be, the whole point of this converter is that you can use your existing controllers on a PlayStation 5, or maybe if you don't want to buy two of every controller, you just buy all your favorite controllers on one platform and then make them compatible with PlayStation 5 using this adapter. Now, the reason you have to do this is that some controllers just don't work at all, but even the Fight Sticks that do work on a PlayStation, if they're not officially licensed, then after 8 minutes there will be a timeout and the controller will just cease to exist as far as the PlayStation is concerned. So whatever magic is going on inside this adapter, it's spoofing the authentication system to make the PlayStation think that an officially licensed controller is plugged in, when in fact you've got a Switch controller plugged in, or just an unofficial controller. Now, in my testing, I tried a number of different controllers and a number of different configurations and comparisons between this adapter and also the previous Wingman FGC, which is the red one, and the Wingman FGC2, and to be quite honest, I could not find any lag. In my not specifically scientific testing, I did find that there wasn't really any appreciable lag that was added to the system when you're using these converters. But I will talk about the lag thing a little bit later on because it's kind of annoying on the Brooke website that they're not very clear about how much latency is added. On this particular adapter, it says no latency on the website. I don't know if that's actually true. The fighting game community online seems to have like differing opinions on this subject, so I wish that Brooke would just make it very clear exactly how much latency in terms of like milliseconds on their website. But again, we'll talk about that later. But now for something far more interesting, we're going to remove this Switch controller and we're going to do something which makes absolutely no sense. We're going to plug a PlayStation controller in with the cable. You can also do this wirelessly. And just to show you here, I've got the DualSense plugged directly into the adapter, which is going into the PlayStation. There seems to be absolutely no need for this, right? But that's where you'd be wrong, because by using the adapter, you can transform your regular, officially licensed DualSense controller into something far more powerful. If you pop over to the Brooke website, you can actually use a web interface or a downloadable app. First of all, let's say you don't like the layout of these buttons. Well, you can remap them to pretty much anywhere else you want them to be. So instead of having cross here and circle here, you could flip them so that circle is here and cross is there. I'm going to click on the left button here. I'm going to remap it to right. And then I'm going to click on the right button here and I'm going to remap it to left. And then plugged back into the PlayStation 5, you can see that left now moves me right and right now moves me left. Seems bizarre, but there are definitely reasons why you might want to do this. Definitely for accessibility reasons. Let's say you don't have thumbs and you aren't able to press these buttons here, but you do have your fingers here and you want to have your controls mapped to the shoulder buttons instead. Now, I think actually PlayStation has an accessibility feature that allows you to do this without an adapter, but the benefit is that you can walk around with this adapter, not this particular adapter, you can walk around carrying this Brook converter, and then whatever PlayStation you plug it into will instantly have your accessibility features without having to like go into the settings to change them. You can also add a turbo feature to this controller, which doesn't have it built in if you click on the turbo button here. So let's just say I want my light punch to be turbo. Then back on the PlayStation, if I press this button, you can see it is now rapid triggering, even though I'm holding down the button just once. The next thing you can do is add a macro to your controller. Obviously, the DualSense doesn't have macro functionality built in. Now, because I'm not plugged directly into the PlayStation at the moment, I won't even be able to see exactly what I'm doing. But let's say that I want my R3 button to trigger a fireball. I can just click record on here, click yes, and then go like that. So now back in Street Fighter, all I have to do is press this one button and I can do a fireball in a fighting game. This isn't actually that useful. Maybe if you had a very specific combo that you just never managed to land, you could actually use this to cheat, but I think you'd kind of be missing the point. But now I want to show you the function that's actually most powerful about this Converter Center software, and it's the Advanced tab, because in here you can actually change quite a lot about the controller. So just going through these categories, you can see you've got gamepad vibrations, scaling ratios of the thumbstick dead zone, touchpad triggers, and anything you don't understand. It's got these really helpful tooltips. If you just hover over the question mark, it just shows you exactly what it means. And the one that interested me the most is being able to change the dead zones. As you know, on a PlayStation 5 controller, you actually can't do anything if you end up with stick drift. But if you change the dead zone here to something like 42% or something like that, then when you go into this gamepad testing zone, you can actually see that the red zone here is all dead zone and it does not register any movement in the game. So if you've got a controller that's slightly leaning, like, I don't know, 10% to the right or something, you can just add that to the dead zone and you can still at least get some use out of your controller as long as you leave the dead zone in order to make actual movements. So dealing with stick drift is obviously a massive benefit, but what I actually personally liked doing was just setting the dead zone to 100% so I can turn off these analog sticks. So you can now see that whole zone is red and it does not register any movement whatsoever. So now that we're plugged back into the PlayStation 5, you can see that my directions are still moving as normal because I predominantly play my fighting games on the D-pad when I'm playing on a pad controller, but the analog sticks now do absolutely nothing. Maybe you have a game that allows you to turn the analog sticks off, but if you can't, let's say that you're just new to the fighting game and just every time you do a fireball you end up pushing this stick here to the right by accident. Now it doesn't even matter if you bash these things because you can set them to be just completely off or just have a very large dead zone in the converter software. And if I plug it in with the cable again directly into the console, you can see all my changes are reverted back to normal because all of those changes are just translations through the converter. So when I'm not using the converter, all of those changes like left is right and right is left and the stick dead zone and all of those macros and turbo features, they just disappear completely because they're all inside this converter, not actually adapting the controller itself. Alright, that's pretty much everything you need to know about these converters. As far as I can tell, the P5 and the P5S don't add any latency. I couldn't find any latency if there is any. The reason I've brought up this website is because I want to show you just how confusing this system is. So first of all, if you go over to the Brick website and you click on products, you're probably looking for converters, right? Well, there is no converters category. They are set out by PlayStation, Switch, and Xbox. I'll go over to Nintendo Switch and click on converters, and where is my converter? The P5S, which the main point of is that it allows you to plug it into your Nintendo Switch, it's not on here. So if you want to find the P5S, you have to go to the PlayStation category, go to PS5, PS4, PS3, click on converters, And then actually, oh, it's not here either. I genuinely cannot find this product on their website, so I did a Google search. Here is the site for the P5S. It allows you to plug any of your controllers into your PlayStation 5 or your Nintendo Switch 2. Allows you to play with your PlayStation 5 controller on your Nintendo Switch 2 or with a Switch controller on your PlayStation 5. Now the price for this on Amazon.com is $79.99. The P5, which apparently does pretty much exactly the same thing but doesn't work on your Nintendo Switch, is $78, so a $2 difference. I don't really know if that justifies having two separate units. You can still buy the Wingman FGC2 for $73, but there's a better version that's come out called the Wingman FGC VX, which is $74.99. And then the Wingman FGC just doesn't seem to exist anymore. I suppose it doesn't really need to exist now that they've got the Wingman FGC VX. But if you're confused just listening to this, imagine trying to actually make a video about this. All right, so none of this is going to change the fact that you should basically just buy the Wingman P5S at the end of this video. But just so that Brooke understands how confusing this is for fighting gamers who, let's face it, aren't interested in the technical aspects. We just want to know how to get these controllers to work on our PlayStations. Check out this comparison list. It also shows you that the FGC, FGC2, and the P5 by comparison, like the P5 basically allows you to do everything, whereas the FGC2 didn't work with PS4 games, it wasn't working with wireless, it wasn't compatible with the motion controls, like the gyro built into your controller. So the P5, as far as I can tell, significantly better for like a few dollars extra. So looking at this graph, it makes sense to think that the P5 is the best one, right? But then you find this website, the P5S, which isn't even in the categories. You have to just search for it on Google. And when you go down here to the comparison, it actually shows you a new comparison list with the P5, the P5S, the XE2, and the VX. So on this website, they've completely forgotten about the FGC and the FGC2. Now they're only showing the FGC VX. And as you can see by comparison, the P5 has loads of stuff that the VX doesn't have, but it is not compatible with PlayStation 3 and Nintendo Switch 1 and 2. So the P5S is obviously the winner, and if the official prices are $78 and $79.99, you should probably just get the P5S. The only thing it doesn't allow you to do is play on PlayStation 3. So even just trying to go through the website and explain this is confusing. And if someone came to me and said like, which adapter should I buy? Do I want the FGC or the FGC2? It's like, well, actually, one of these adapters doesn't work with PlayStation 4 games. One of them has better compatibility. One of them works with Nintendo Switch, and one of them doesn't, but it doesn't allow you to work with PlayStation 3. Like, it is really confusing, and I don't mind that you have multiple products. But what's confusing is that the website only shows you this comparison list on certain websites. The P5 website only shows you a comparison with the P5 and two products that are not even listed on this other comparison list. And my final complaint for the website is that the main thing that people want to know with this adapter is, does it introduce lag? Because people are like, if it's going to introduce lag, I'll just buy an official controller. I'll do whatever I have to do in order to have as little lag as possible. So it's all well and good YouTubers doing some tests, like I'm pointing my iPhone at my monitor and trying to get as accurate a reading as possible. But if you could just give people numbers on the website and just say 0 milliseconds of lag or just 1 frame of lag, if you could just say a number, that would just make people much happier about buying the products, because then it's like, okay, 1 frame of lag, I don't mind. Half a frame of lag, I don't mind. Experience imperceptible lag. But then on the P5S it says no perceivable lag. Do I want imperceptible lag or do I want no perceptible lag? I understand that for Xbox you might need an adapter. I understand that for Switch you might need an adapter. But having this, the P5 and the P5S be almost exactly the same thing and like $2 different, I just find it kind of confusing. People are going to be like, should I buy the PlayStation 5 one? It's like, I don't know. Maybe you should buy the Nintendo Switch one. Even if you don't have a Nintendo Switch, you might need to plug into it. And also, this one has no perceptible lag, and this one has imperceptible lag. All right, so a little bit too much information about their website, maybe. The long and short of it is they've got 2 new adapters, and they're great as far as I can tell. I've often mentioned this in the past. Like, I think that Brooke single-handedly like saves the FGC every now and then. It's just like, well, we're all going to be stuck with this type of console and we have to use this kind of setup. And it's just like Brook jumps in and they're like, well, we've got an adapter which will make pretty much any controller work on that console, and that's amazing. Now, at the same time, we can't ignore the fact that there are some converters out there much less sophisticated that do allow you to run non-PlayStation controllers on PlayStation for less. Like, I think they go for like somewhere between $25 to like $40. So if you don't need all the bells and whistles of the Brook adapter, there are some other options out there, but it is very, very powerful when you consider what it's capable of doing. Anyway, that's pretty much everything I have to say about the Brook P5 and the P5S. Great products, terrible website. Please fix it, Brook. I'm just joking. I love these products and I'm really glad that we have them, but it is really confusing. And for the good of the FGC, I really wish we could just have like a number on the website just saying exactly how much lag there is so that people can just decide, should I buy it or not, rather than having to go on Twitter and asking people, hey guys, it's been 3 years. Like, are these converters, are they any good now? Anyway, that's all from me today. I've been NihongoGamer. I'll see you real soon.